Hey guys, tonight we begin in a desert town where the sun hasn't risen yet, but the walls already radiate heat like exhausted secrets. You stepped from your woven mat barefoot, instantly regretting the choice as the stone floor tries to toast your soles. It's gonna be a hot day. The kind of heat that wraps around your eyelids and makes your thoughts sweat. The kind of heat that turns window panes into minor acts of cruelty. And yet, it's cool here, inside this ancient Persian home. Somehow, miraculously, delightfully cool. There's a soft whoosh overhead, a steady breath, like the house is gently exhaling. You look up. There it is, a tall, elegant tower rising from the roof like a chimney with confidence issues. It doesn't puff smoke, it gathers wind. Then it hums down, circulating through your living space with the passive persuasion of a breeze that knows it's welcome. You probably won't survive this house if you're counting on air conditioning units and duct-taped fans. The Persians knew better. They used wind, designed it, caught it, bent it. And tonight, that's what we're exploring. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing this cozy little community glow across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pad toward the courtyard where the tower looms taller, grander, strange. It's called a badgir, a wind catcher. Thin slits on each face stare across the rooftops like sleepy eyes waiting for a gust. When the desert wind comes, it slips inside, dances down, and spreads through the home like whispered mercy. Mainstream historical fact: wind catchers, badgirs, were a key component of Persian architecture, especially in desert cities like Yazd. These structures harnessed natural airflow to cool buildings, often working in tandem with subterranean water channels called qanats to reduce indoor temperatures dramatically. You sit beneath the tower's shadow, listening. It's not loud, but it's constant, steady, like an invisible river overhead, curving through stone and air and theory. Even when outside feels like the inside of a clay oven, this space breathes. Fringe tidbit? A particular wind catcher in Yazd was locally nicknamed the Sleepy Merchant because its east-facing vent only activated during mid-morning breezes, right when the town's shopkeepers opened. Coincidence or prophetic HVAC? Historians still argue whether wind catchers were first designed as engineering feats or evolved organically from trial-and-error survival instincts. Did Persian architects sketch blueprints by candlelight, or just follow the breeze until it obeyed? You lean into the tower's cool current, face damp with dew-like comfort. No wires, no switches, just wind. And tomorrow, you climb inside that tower and learn exactly how it gulps air, digests it, and serves it chilled. You climb the narrow staircase carved from pale stone, toes brushing grit as you spiral upward toward the tower that hums softly above the courtyard like a mechanical prophet who never quite learned how to shout. It's early morning, The breeze is quiet, but you're about to meet the structure built to amplify it. The top of the wind catcher opens like a cautious flower. Narrow slits face each cardinal direction, poised to intercept whatever gusts dare approach. You duck inside and feel it, a faint tug, like the building has caught a secret and is whispering it downward. The air travels through vertical shafts, each one narrowing slightly to increase velocity. These channels guide breeze down into the heart of the house, where it fans out like curious mist, cooling rooms in its path. You're standing in a passive air conditioning system built centuries before thermostats had existential crises. Mainstream historical fact: Persian wind towers, bajagirs, harnessed natural ventilation by capturing prevailing winds and directing them downward into buildings. The vertical design, often combined with internal partitions and evaporative cooling elements, allowed hot air to be expelled while cool air circulated, maintaining lower indoor temperatures even in extreme heat. You place your hand near one shaft. The breeze is modest but deliberate, shaped by geometry and patience. Beneath you, someone shifts in bed, still sleeping comfortably under a clay roof that should, by rights, be melting. Fringe tidbit: one wind catcher in Kashan had its vents shaped like stylized lion jaws, a decorative metaphor suggesting the tower devoured the sun's breath and released it as shade. Locals believed homes with such designs could repel heat faster, though it may have just terrified birds. Historians still argue whether wind catchers were conceptualized purely for cooling or also served symbolic roles in Persian society: status markers, architectural metaphors, or even spiritual tools. Were these towers technological responses to climate or quiet philosophical statements? You follow the shaft downward, watching dust particles dance in the stream of invisible comfort. No buttons, no noise, just gravity's polite collaboration with atmosphere. Below, a child yawns and reaches for her morning tea, not knowing a tower above just choreographed her comfort. And tomorrow you descend into the home it serves, a Persian cooling chamber so clever it makes stone sweat. You descend the curved staircase into the heart of the house, the kind of quiet descent that makes you feel like you're entering both shelter and secret. The air is cooler here, noticeably so. It slips across your cheek like a shy ghost, one that doesn't believe in drama, but excels in comfort. This is the Persian cooling chamber, and it's not just architectural flex, it's survival with style. The walls are thick, rounded in places, smooth in others, and textured just enough to break the monotony of age. You touch the plaster. It's cool, almost damp. Not unpleasantly. More like the air kissed the wall and decided to stay for dinner. Mainstream historical fact: Persian homes, especially in desert regions like Yazd, Kashan, and Bam, were often built with thick mud brick walls and subterranean chambers that partnered with wind catchers to create naturally cooled environments. These summer rooms offered refuge during heat waves, utilizing the principles of thermal mass and passive airflow to regulate temperature. You reach the central chamber, semi-underground, ceiling high and slightly domed. A window-sized vent feeds into the room from above, the wind-catcher's breeze gently teasing a hanging cloth that flutters like thoughtful punctuation. This space doesn't fight heat, it outsmarts it. Fringe tidbit. Some Persian homes used glazed ceramic urns filled with water strategically placed beneath wind vents to boost evaporative cooling. As air passed over the moist surfaces, temperature dropped further. A few families added slices of citrus to the urns, not for extra cooling, but for emotional aroma. One diary even referred to it as smelling like sleep. Historians still argue whether these cooling rooms were designed with mathematical precision or guided by generations of intuitive adaptation. Were they formulas in mud brick or whispered lessons carved from heat and habit? You sit on a low cushion, sipping rose water that somehow feels colder than logic should allow. Every breath down here is curated. The wind catcher guides. The structure responds. No fans, no cables, just architectural empathy. Stylianos joins, flops beside a ceramic jug, and mutters, "If this room were any smarter, it'd write poetry." You suspect it already has. You glance at the carved ceiling, lined with subtle curves and shadow play designed to confuse thermal energy like a maze for sweat. It's soft, intentional, kind. And tomorrow, you'll follow the cooling logic underground into the watery veins and secret canals that dance quietly with desert towers. You follow the corridor beyond the summer room, feeling the temperature shift with every step. Cool, cool, still cool. And then something else. A quiet, gurgling sound, like the earth sighing through stone. You're at the edge of the Qanat system now, the underground water channels that partner with wind towers in a centuries-old duet of climate control and clever humility. You duck into a low arch, knees slightly bent, sandals brushing damp clay. It smells like cold stone, buried patience, and maybe forgotten figs. The channel lies shallow. No grand river, just a quiet thread of water trickling from far-off mountains, guided by tunnels carved with tools that didn't believe in speed, but believed deeply in precision. Mainstream historical fact. Qanats are subterranean aqueducts used extensively in ancient Persia to transport water from underground sources across vast distances. These gravity-fed systems were ingeniously designed to provide reliable water supply for agriculture, homes, and cooling, often feeding into reservoirs connected to wind catchers to enhance evaporative airflow. You trace the path from water to breeze. Here's how it works. Wind slips down the tower, meets the damp air rising from the Qanat-fed basement, and the combination drops the temperature like a polite slap from Mother Nature. Moisture from the channel cools the air even further. You're inside a passive machine where heat has no authority. Fringe tidbit? One Qanat entrance near Yazd was marked with carved eyes, Not religious symbols, but stylized faces meant to watch for good water. Some believe the eyes were guardian metaphors. Others think the carver just got bored and wanted company. Historians still argue whether Connaught wind tower systems were designed together as integrated systems or evolved independently before merging. Did ancient engineers plan this as a duet from the beginning, or was it a lucky collision of dry logic and wet ambition? You crouch beside a ceramic pot, resting near the water channel. It's sweating from the air, not the contents. You reach out, the breeze from above kisses the rim and chills your fingertips. A room upstairs just got 2 degrees cooler because of this moment. Stylianos wanders by, nudging an urn with his foot. "Evaporation is underrated," he murmurs, then sneezes. You decide not to comment. Above ground, the tower stands regal, functional. Below, the Connaught runs quiet, faithful. Together, they orchestrate a home cooled by wind and water, need and design, breeze and belief. You step back into the main corridor. The air feels different, balanced, like nature just shook hands with engineering and said, "Let's be subtle." And tomorrow, you walk through Yazd and trace how daily life bends gently around tower shadows and cooling rituals. You step into Yazd's sleepy streets just after dawn, the rooftops pale and the alleyways still yawning. The city stretches gently, like someone waking but not yet opening their eyes. Above you, towers rise, wind catchers in every shade of beige and confidence. Today you walk not as a tourist, but as a student in the breeze ritual, the rhythm of daily life shaped entirely by the tower's whispers. Shadows glide along mud-brick walls, dancing in elongated shapes that remind you of calligraphy written by someone half asleep. A child stands beneath one tower, arms out, feeling the first draft stir his shirt. His grandmother smiles and mutters, "It'll be a good baking day." You don't know whether she means bread or bricks. Mainstream historical fact. In Yazd, Iran, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, wind catchers are not just architectural features, but cultural anchors. Their presence influences where people gather, how homes are structured, and even when daily tasks are scheduled. Morning market stalls often align with tower shade and airflow. Homes face prevailing breezes. Meals adjust to heat cycles choreographed by towers. You follow Stylianos through a covered passageway. He stops beneath a tower labeled Shemal-e-Sabur, North Patience. The vent faces north, catching chill breezes even on stubborn afternoons. Locals say its designer was once late to everything, but never sweaty. Fringe tidbit: a Yazd bakery uses an adjacent wind catcher to determine dough proofing times. "If the flour dances, we bake," says the baker, who wears a hat shaped like a miniature tower. It's unclear if the hat improves airflow or just mood. Historians still argue whether the integration of towers into daily routines was conscious urban planning or evolved instinct. Did families choose homes based on airflow charts, or did they just follow breezes like polite cats? You pause near a cafe built into a repurposed cooling chamber. It's dim, calm, and smells like saffron and decision-making. The barista slides you rosewater lemonade. You ask, "Why no ice?" He nods towards the windcatcher shaft. "We don't need shortcuts." Above, a merchant adjusts his display based on tower shadow. "When the shadow touches that brick, I start haggling," he says. You watch the sun drift and realize pricing might be linked to breeze behavior. You end your stroll beneath a tall badgir whose vents inhale with precision. A girl sketches in a notebook. Her pencil strokes align with the wind's rhythm. "I draw when the city breathes," she tells you. And tomorrow, you'll dive deeper into how desert logic shaped the towers themselves. Because when sand is your neighbor, design learns humility. You squat beside a wind tower base, where sand curls like sleepy dragon scales, and the sun begins its daily audition to set surfaces on fire. Today, you're here to witness what sand teaches, not just about hardship or heat, but about design. Because this golden dust isn't just scenery, it's professor, critic, and creative director of every architectural line drawn in defiance of melting humans. You watch Stylianos sketch in the margins of a worn notebook. He draws towers not with rulers, but with memory. "Sand teaches flow," he mutters, "so we copy that." Mainstream historical fact: Persian windcatchers weren't arbitrary structures. They were shaped by environmental cues and climate logic. Designers studied prevailing winds, shifting heat zones, and the behavior of desert terrain to construct towers that guided airflow with minimal resistance. Materials like mud brick and adobe were chosen for insulation and thermal mass, allowing homes to stay cool even under intense sun. You tilt your head toward a wind catcher whose vent slants slightly, not because of damage, but because the builder anticipated cross-currents from two mountain passes. It's not symmetrical, it's smart. Fringe tidbit: one tower design near the Dasht-e-Kavir desert included sand filters, woven palm frond screens that caught gritty air before it entered the shaft. Locals joked the tower was polite, brushing the wind's teeth before welcoming it indoors. Historians still argue whether Persian design evolved from scientific observation or spiritual harmony with nature. Did architects run wind tests using reeds and incense, or simply listen to dunes and record their size? You kneel in a courtyard where the pattern of bricks isn't decorative, it's aerodynamic. Raised seams catch morning gusts, redirecting them into adjacent towers. It feels improvised, but it's been here for centuries. You ask Stylianos, how'd they know? He gestures to the horizon. Sand doesn't lie. A camel lumbers past with a bundle of shade cloths tied to its saddle. The vendor waves. "For homes that want more manners," he says, referring to cloths hung near towers to soften aggressive breezes. You smile. Even the desert has etiquette. Near an alley, two children play beside a tower base, tossing pebbles and predicting airflow based on the vent's hum. One says, "It's a mango morning." You don't question it. Desert logic is layered. Above, the wind slides through a diagonal vent and flows down like someone whispering directions to lost warmth. You follow it, tracing the slope, The curve, the intentional asymmetry born of trial, error, and really hot afternoons. And tomorrow, you meet the builders, the artisans who fine-tune tower shapes like songs composed in wind and dust. You cross a dusty courtyard filled with stacked bricks, scent of fresh mortar, and the peculiar sound of someone whistling while measuring airflow with a feather. Today, you meet the builders, the artisans who didn't just construct towers, but tuned them like wind instruments. Stylianos leads you to an open terrace where three men argue about vent curvature as if it's a moral dilemma. One says, "If it's too narrow, the wind complains." Another replies, "Then make it apologize." You smile. This is not just construction, it's choreography. Mainstream historical fact. The design and construction of wind catchers involved skilled craftsmanship and environmental expertise. Artisans assessed wind direction, local terrain, humidity levels, and seasonal airflow patterns to build structures that captured and redirected breezes effectively. Tower height, vent placement, and internal angles were all tailored for optimal cooling, often requiring trial and error across generations. You watch one builder cut vent slats at subtle angles, not straight, not wide, but wind-friendly. He dips a strip of cloth into rose water and holds it near the opening. The way it flutters tells him what the tower wants. Fringe tidbit? One famous Badjir in Bam was said to sing at night when wind passed through its narrowest channel, a kind of haunting hum that locals interpreted as either good fortune or tower gossip. The sound vanished after renovations. Locals still mourn the melody. Historians still argue whether tower tuning was rooted in empirical science or traditional intuition passed through apprenticeship. Did builders rely on wind diagrams and airflow charts, or simply follow smell, rhythm, and ancestral suggestions like wind likes angles that feel like sunrise? You climb a scaffolding near a half-finished tower. The base curves inward, designed to concentrate low gusts into a narrow passage that intensifies airflow. Stylianos mutters, "It's basically a polite tornado." You grip the railing a little tighter. The builders work silently, occasionally muttering phrases that sound like poetry carved from bricks. Too sharp and it bites, too flat and it forgets. One scribbles in chalk, "Wind is shy, treat it like royalty." You suspect he used to be a poet or a cat. Inside a draft model, cloth strips dangle like sleepy flags, each whispering a different airflow story. One curls left, one hangs limp, one flutters and makes a builder nod. "That's the angle," he says, "told you." Stylianos taps the vent's inner surface. "Smooth enough for breeze diplomacy," he jokes. You nod, unsure whether to laugh or bow. As the sun dips behind a dome-shaped mosque, the builders pack their tools, leaving the tower unfinished but already effective. A breeze rolls down, not strong, but precise. And tomorrow, you'll listen to palace gossip, where towers become status symbols and engineering becomes political poetry. You step softly across the polished tiles of a palace courtyard, where breezes sways through carved archways, and gossip drifts like powdered saffron, subtle but persistent. Today, you overhear the whispers, because wind towers don't just cool houses, they've cooled egos,
shaped reputations, and stood proudly as symbols of status among noble circles. You're watching architecture become identity. A servant rushes past, carrying rosewater and a scroll. Another peeks from behind a curtain embroidered with miniature tower motifs. Stylianos waves you toward a marble bench. "They're arguing again," he mutters. "The vizier says his tower vents are 15 degrees more divine than the emir's." You nod solemnly. These things matter. Mainstream historical fact. In elite circles of ancient Persia, wind catchers weren't just functional. They became symbols of wealth, refinement, and technological mastery. Tower size, decoration, and performance were points of pride among aristocrats and urban elites. Some commissioned unique designs to display engineering flair or align with astrological beliefs. You gaze up at a tower crowned with blue glazed tile, its vent shaped like a falcon's beak. A noblewoman strolls beneath it, umbrella unused, posture smug. Her tower hums like content prophecy. Rumor says she installed a mirror system inside to reflect light downward so the breeze arrives with sparkle. Fringe tidbit? In Shiraz, one palace reportedly had a wind catcher tuned to emit soft, flute-like sounds during specific wind conditions. Musicians claimed the tower composed better melodies than half the royal band. The scribe's footnote? Tower has pride. Do not insult. Historians still argue whether palace wind catchers were truly functional innovations or extravagant architectural flexing. Did noble homes benefit from airflow science? Or did towers just serve as breezy status updates? A servant approaches with a chart comparing airflow metrics between two families. You ask, "Is this a competition?" He nods, "With snacks." Stylianos raises an eyebrow. "Did I mention the prince hired a tower bard?" You blink. "He reads poems to the vent openings, says it improves morale." You're tempted to ask the towers if they agree. You stroll past a chamber where courtiers sip sherbet beside a tower base shaped like an elephant's trunk. The vizier calls it air of memory. The emir rolls his eyes and gestures to his triple-vented dome labeled Fate's Draft. Tensions rise. Ice melts faster. Above, a tower catches a sudden gust and lets out a soft echo, half sigh, half applause. Everyone looks up. No one speaks. Stylianos whispers, "The breeze just took sides." And tomorrow, you'll slip into a mosque courtyard, where airflow isn't just comfort, but a spiritual companion to sermons and silence.
You pad barefoot into the mosque courtyard, stone beneath your feet cooled by deliberate design and years of prayerful wear. It's mid-afternoon, the sun high and insistent, but here, in the quiet embrace of faith and breeze, you feel shade wrap around your shoulders like thoughtful silk. Today, wind towers aren't decoration or status, they're spiritual comfort, playing backup to belief when sermons outlast sunscreen. Stylianos waits near a marble fountain, tracing moisture rings with a finger. "The sermon was longer yesterday," he says, eyeing the vent above. "The tower carried most of the patience." You nod, already grateful. Mainstream historical fact.
Many mosques in arid Persian cities incorporated wind catchers into their architectural layout to ensure cool airflow during prayer gatherings. Combined with open courtyards, high ceilings, and strategic venting, these towers kept worshippers comfortable during long religious sessions, even in peak heat. You sit beside a man reading quietly from a text as the breeze stirs his robe. He doesn't look up, doesn't need to. The tower above hums softly, adjusting airflow like a sound technician during a sacred concert. Every vent is intentional. Every whisper is welcome. Fringe tidbit. One mosque reportedly tuned its wind tower to emit soft rhythmic pulses during recitation, subtle airflow bursts said to match breath cadence for long verses. Worshippers called it the tower's tasbih. Engineers claimed coincidence. Imams just smiled. Historians still argue whether airflow integration in religious spaces was a product of ergonomic compassion or theological symbolism. Did towers help believers stay focused, or were they metaphors for divine presence, an unseen comfort, always moving, always refreshing? Stalionos points to a carved inscription above the main vent. "Let the air remind you." He says it was added during a particularly hot summer when tempers flared between two reciters. The tower became peacemaker. You follow the breeze toward the mihrab. It flows delicately, cool, respectful, not demanding attention, but offering it. Children nap in shaded corners. A muezzin practices verses beside a slatted window, shaped to filter sound and wind equally. You hear both. They match. Outside the mosque, a vendor hands you rose ice soaked in pomegranate. It melts slowly, wind-guarded. "Buy now," he says. "Blessings expire at dusk." You nod, unsure if he means the ice or your mood. The imam exits, wipes his brow, and glances toward the tower. He nods, not to people, but to airflow, as if thanking it for holding space where speech and silence wrestled. And tomorrow, you'll read love letters and poems addressed to these towers, comparing them to loyal spouses, moody friends, and exes who always remembered the birthday breeze. You tiptoe into a cramped study tucked beneath a rooftop, where scrolls curl beside teacups and wind towers get emotional. You didn't expect romance today, but here, amid the parchments and perfume, wind catchers have become metaphors. Lovers write to them, poets envy them, architects sigh. You sit at a table covered in velvet dust, reading letters that treat airflow like affection. Stalionos flips through a packet tied with fig thread. This one calls the tower "my faithful breath," he says. The vent never missed a dawn. You nod. It's less HVAC and more heartbreak. Mainstream historical fact. Persian literature and visual art often incorporated references to wind towers, especially during the Qajar period and early modern eras. These structures were depicted not just as functional inventions, but as symbols of constancy, change, and whispered communication. In love poetry, towers represented steadfast companions or the unpredictable moods of absence and return. You read a poem carved into ceramic tile. The breeze came from you, silent, loyal, unseen, and I no longer needed permission to miss you. Fringe tidbit: one noblewoman is rumored to have crafted miniature wind catchers from carved soapstone. keeping them by her window to give her letters a breeze. Her diary laments a missed draft during a monsoon. The tower sulked, she wrote. Historians still argue whether emotional associations with Badgirs were spontaneous cultural responses or deliberately cultivated metaphors in literature. Did people romanticize towers because they were ever present, or were builders tapping into deeper allegories from the start? Stalianos passes another letter, smudged by rosewater. He said my breath matched the east vent's music. I believed him until his breeze turned south. You're not crying, you're sympathetically sweating. A painting nearby shows a woman cloaked in patterned fabric shaped like vent slats. A breeze curls from her scarf. Stalianos murmurs, "She's the memory of morning shade." You believe it. Outside, a man recites verses into a tower vent, an ode, or maybe an apology. I mistuned our summer, he says. The tower offers silence. And tomorrow, you follow the merchants into shops where wind isn't poetic, but practical. Adaptations abound, breezes behave, and everyone wants chill with flavor. You duck into a spice shop, shaded by striped awnings, where the scent of turmeric flirts with cardamom, and the ceiling hums quietly, wind towers adapted for business. Today, breeze isn't romantic, it's efficient. These merchants don't write poetry about drafts. They measure them, monetize them, and occasionally flavor them. Stiliana stands beside a barrel of dried lemon peels, nodding toward a custom tower vent above. Designed to breathe in sweet, he whispers. You're skeptical. He's smug. The vent is smaller than usual, angled sharply to coax airflow across aromatic shelves before it settles near customer feet. You feel it, warm air tugged, cooled by evaporation, then gently perfumed. Welcome to desert air retail. Mainstream historical fact: Persian merchants frequently customized wind catchers to suit their businesses, adjusting vent shapes, tower height, and internal passages to direct cooling airflow into shops and storage spaces. These adaptations enhanced customer comfort, protected perishable goods, and subtly influenced buying behavior in climates where cool equals cozy. You notice shelves facing east receive faster breeze bursts in the morning, encouraging early trade. The vendor says, "My cinnamon sells best when chilled." You raise an eyebrow. He grins. Heat makes it anxious. Fringe tidbit. A perfumery in Yazd reportedly installed a tower with slatted filters soaked in rosewater and violet oil. Locals claimed the breeze exiting the vent smelled like love letters. One customer fainted. Sales tripled. Historians still argue whether commercial tower adaptations reflect ingenious climate mastery or consumer manipulation via airflow psychology. Did merchants genuinely aim to protect inventory, or just use chill vibes to persuade hesitant buyers? Stiliana's peeks into a butcher's courtyard where airflow directs cool drafts over clay counters. No flies, the butcher boasts, only admiration. You don't ask if that's FDA approved. Further down the lane, a tea house uses retractable cloth dampers inside their tower, adjustable like medieval dimmer switches. The owner adjusts cooling intensity based on mood, music, and argument levels. Too much breeze during debate makes truth slip, he says. A corner shop sells handcrafted tower miniatures as indoor mood regulators. One glows gently when the central vent is tickled by breath.
Therapeutic draft, the label claims. You're tempted. You sip saffron lemonade by a window where a merchant displays air-cooled walnuts. They taste like self-esteem. You ask if the breeze changes flavor. He replies, only if the wind's been lectured. Styliana slides a brochure under your mug. Towers tailored to taste, vent engineering for flavors and feelings. There's an entire menu. You decide to attend tomorrow's seminar on humidity and honesty, because tomorrow you venture below again to subterranean chambers where the air re-enters itself and secrets are whispered like cooling spells.
You descend a spiral staircase hidden behind a stack of date crates and a surprisingly judgmental cat. The air thickens not with heat, but mystery. You're going subterranean again, deeper than Connaught's, into chambers built not just for water or storage, but for wind's shy cousin, redirected chill. Stylianos hands you a lantern and grins. Don't speak too loudly, he warns. The air here likes secrets. You enter a vaulted room where walls curve inward like gentle arguments. Vents slit the dome at angles that seem accidental until you feel a breeze that clearly knows exactly where it's going. It circles, pauses, then disappears. Mainstream historical fact. Persian architecture often featured underground chambers linked not only to qanats, but to specialized airflow tunnels designed to trap and redistribute cooler air upward into living spaces. These structures used thermodynamics, wind pressure, and building orientation to manipulate airflow in elegant and quiet ways, cooling homes without mechanical systems. You pace slowly. One vent leads straight into a narrow vertical tunnel, its opening shaped like a whispering mouth. Stylianos drops a feather. It floats sideways, then retreats. You're in the middle of an underground breeze ballet. Fringe tidbit? A hidden room in Yazda once used a reed curtain soaked in saffron water to mark wind temperature. If the cloth curled, it meant cool enough to eat stew. One family insisted it could predict arguments. Stylianos mutters, "I believe it." Historians still argue whether these subterranean airflow systems were intentionally mapped or evolved from layered improvisations, rooms added as needs changed, breezes discovered by accident, then archived in clay memory. Were the vents calculated or found and adapted like desert improvisation? You sit beside a ceramic pipe, halfway embedded in the wall. It rattles faintly, then sighs, air rushing through from a tower 2 buildings away. Stylianos says they called this borrowed breeze. You wonder if rent was due. Further in, a domed chamber hums like a buried flute. You ask, "What lives down here?" He replies, "Decisions." You light a small candle. Watch it bend gently, without flickering. This chamber doesn't echo. It listens. Above ground, someone opens a window, and the air reconfigures, like a loyal courier choosing a new route. You pass a sleeping cat on your way out.
It stirs, sniffs the breeze, and chooses not to follow. Stylianos nods. That's trust. And tomorrow, you emerge topside to walk through modern rooftops and misguided imitations, architects chasing old spells and getting splinters.
You crawl out of a cellar into a modern rooftop where white tiles reflect sun like a passive-aggressive mirror. This isn't ancient Yazd anymore. It's post-colonial concrete, steel reinforcements, and architectural confusion. Today, you walk through the replicas, the rooftop regrets, the ambitious blueprints that tried to resurrect wind towers and instead summoned nostalgia with plumbing issues. Stylianos hands you a brochure, Neo-Bodgears, Tradition with Wi-Fi. You squint. The image shows a glass tower shaped like a juice box. They mean well, he whispers. Mainstream historical fact. Modern architects in Iran and abroad have attempted to revive windcatcher technology, integrating it into eco-friendly and sustainable building designs. While some projects have successfully adapted ancient principles into contemporary contexts, others struggle with mismatched materials, misunderstood airflow, and aesthetic misinterpretations. You explore a rooftop wind tower made of aluminum and frosted acrylic. It hums unnaturally. The vent angles are symmetrical, sleek, and suspiciously shy. You ask a student nearby, "Does it cool?" She shrugs. "It chirps when the AC breaks." Fringe tidbit? A college dormitory in Tehran installed experimental wind catchers with LED mood indicators. Green meant good airflow, red meant emotional turbulence, yellow meant be patient. Critics labeled it weather therapy. Students called it breeze tinder. Historians still argue whether reviving Bodgears is cultural homage or architectural cosplay. Are modern wind towers genuinely functional, or are they decorative nostalgia dressed in renewable buzzwords? You wander through a university lab where airflow simulations flicker across screens. One engineer says, "We tried adding Bluetooth." Stylianos mutters, "No wind should require pairing." Outside a corporate building, a faux wind catcher sports solar panels and mist dispensers. The brochure claims heritage-infused cooling. A janitor walks past and mutters, "Tower needs therapy." You peek into a tower shaft with plastic mesh and scent cartridges. The architect insists it invokes childhood breezes. Stylianos smells it, then says, "Invokes laundry day." At a desert resort, a windcatcher replica includes tiny fans that activate when guests approach. Interactive cooling, the manager boasts. A child asks, "Can I feed it?" You're unsure if she means air or snacks. You sit beside a rooftop sculpture shaped vaguely like a bodgear. No vents, no shafts, just tribute in stone. Stylianos sighs. It doesn't breathe, but it remembers. And tomorrow? You climb the forgotten towers, the aging structures that still hum in the wind, whispering lessons few bother to learn anymore.
You climb the cracked staircase of a forgotten building, each step echoing memories instead of footsteps. At the top, you reach what might have once been a wind catcher or a sentry post for architectural pride. It's chipped, dusty, leaning slightly left like someone overthinking. But then you feel it. A breeze. Unexpected. Intentional. You're standing inside a tower that refuses to retire. Stylianos taps the plaster. "Still breathing," he mutters. You nod. grateful. Because today you visit the towers that never gave up, the structures that hum quietly in cities no longer listening. Mainstream historical fact: despite modern construction practices phasing out traditional wind catchers, many ancient bedgears remain functional, especially in Yazd and surrounding regions. These relics continue to passively cool rooms, even in semi-abandoned or repurposed buildings, showing the durability and timelessness of Persian airflow design. You peer into the shaft. It's rough now, patched with age and affectionate shortcuts. Yet the wind finds its way, sliding through cracks, teasing a curtain still hanging from better times. The breeze isn't strong, it's nostalgic. Fringe Tidget. A tower in rural Yazd was said to have retired after an earthquake realigned its vent away from prevailing winds. But years later, locals noticed a sudden cooling at dusk. They claimed the tower had changed shifts. One teenager wrote a poem titled "The Windcatcher's Comeback." Historians still argue whether ancient towers that persist do so by structural accident or deliberate resilience baked into material choices and geometry. Are they surviving out of sheer stubbornness? Or did their builders anticipate centuries of indifference? Stylianos hands you a scroll, faded by heat. Its diagram shows overlapping shafts, 2 collapsed, 1 still open. He says, "This one catches the evening wind. It wasn't designed for fame, just supper." You sit beside the tower's base, where chipped tile mosaics hold patterns no one remembers. The breeze shifts. You feel it climb your arm, tickle your neck, then rest beside your sigh. A family lives downstairs. Their child sleeps beneath the vent, unaware it's a 1,000-year-old air conditioner tuned to gentle. The mother says, "We never turn on the fan. It makes the wind sad." Stylianos smiles. Some towers don't age. They teach. And tomorrow, you return for the final reflection, to ask the towers what they remember, what they meant, and how breath became architecture. You sit in the center of the courtyard at dusk, surrounded by stone walls that blush beneath fading sunlight and a breeze that feels both ancient and intentional. This is the end, not of the towers, but of their story's spotlight. Tonight, you reflect not on their structure, but their memory, what they were, what they meant, what they still whisper to those willing to listen sideways. Stylianos joins you with a scroll rolled into a clay mug. "Wind wrote better than we ever did," he says. You sip, unsure if the drink is symbolic or just delicious. Mainstream historical fact: windcatchers, bedgears, remain an enduring symbol of ancient Persian ingenuity, representing sustainable architecture that thrives through passive cooling and local adaptation. Though many have fallen out of use, they've inspired global interest in low-energy building design and climate-responsive innovation. You stand beneath a tall, aging tower, its vent cracked slightly, like someone keeping one eye open. The breeze from above is tentative, but real. It reminds you of those early mornings when the towers woke up before the city did. Fringe tidbit? One abandoned tower near Yazd reportedly altered its airflow pattern after being partially buried in a sandstorm. Locals noticed the vent began catching moonlight at odd angles. A student theorized the tower had retrained itself. Stylianus called it breeze resilience. Historians still argue whether wind towers were ever meant to last this long. Were they pragmatic structures simply defying mortality? Or did the builders know, deeply and stubbornly, that cooling could be timeless? You touch the vent's inner wall. It's smooth, warm. Then, just beneath the surface, you feel the soft push of cooler air rising. It's minor, but deliberate, like breath learning to linger. Stylianos hums a tune, somewhere between lullaby and blueprints. You ask what it's called. He replies, "Tower's last exhale." You stay a little longer. The breeze nudges your shoulder. The courtyard dims. The silence grows tender. The tower above doesn't shout.
Now let the breeze settle into your hairline. The quiet fold itself beneath your fingertips, and the story ease itself into memory. The wind towers hum less now, not because they're tired, but because they've been understood. Their task was never to shout, but to soothe, to catch what nature offered and pass it along gently. Tonight, you've wandered through sun-baked rooftops, curled beside subterranean chambers, and listened to towers argue, flirt, whisper, and refuse to fade. You've watched breeze become ritual, then architecture, then analogy. You've seen stone sweat, scroll sigh, and air decide it prefers poetry. Now the courtyard empties. The final vent leans into dusk, exhaling one last draft. It's not for cooling, not even for comfort, just confirmation that wind still belongs to patience. So soften everything now. Loosen the metaphor. Let your thoughts float like cloth hung in a breeze you didn't summon, but are glad arrived. You don't have to remember every vent's angle, every poem's metaphor, or every fig-scented recipe for passive chill. Just this: that the ancient Persians built towers that didn't demand applause. They built breath, curated, guided, gifted. The towers caught wind, but they gave grace. Let that memory drift low now, not heavy, not loud, just real. Dim the thoughts, hush the heartbeat, slide toward rest like breeze slipping down a clay shaft in silence. Let the air tuck you in.